Welcome to the debate. We are diving into what is really a monumental financial crisis, one confirmed by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. U.S. consumer debt, specifically on credit cards, has just blown past the $1.13 trillion mark and recently hit a staggering $1.17 trillion. And this record high, well, it's paired with a really worrying surge in delinquencies across all age groups, but it's particularly hitting people in that 30 to 39-year-old bracket.
It's an alarming situation, yeah. And the context here is just so crucial. We have all these documented methodologies, often laid out in a neat 8-step system that promise a way out, that promise debt freedom. But at the exact same time, we're facing this macroeconomic reality of just massive structural strain on households. Average credit card interest rates are topping 20% now, which is near an all-time high.
And that tension between the detailed map to freedom and the absolutely brutal terrain, that's the core of our discussion today. When households are faced with this kind of financial chaos, punishing 20% interest rates, persistent inflation, this ongoing difficulty of just making ends meet, is the solution primarily dependent on, rigorous, systematic, individual behavioral change? Or is that macroeconomic environment the dominant limiting factor? I'm going to argue that debt escape is absolutely achievable, but only through structured, automated, individual action. The system works, but you have to commit to it.
And I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle. Look, while adopting rigorous systems is, of course, necessary, I'm going to argue that the sheer scale of the debt burden, the record high cost of borrowing, and the structural necessity of using credit just to bridge income gaps, those are the primary determinants of success or failure. These high-level systemic barriers can often render individual methods, well, pretty insufficient against the velocity and scale of the problem.
I see why you emphasize the scale, I really do. But focusing purely on the environment ignores the power of personal architecture. The path out of debt is proven. It works, provided the individual adopts a disciplined system that fundamentally removes reliance on personal willpower. Willpower is, frankly, it's garbage in a financial context. It is just inherently unreliable. The first step, and it's also the hardest, is facing the brutal truth. You have to conduct a full inventory.
The full inventory, yes. And that means pulling up every single debt, noting the precise interest rate, which is really the silent killer that just multiplies the principal, and knowing the minimum payment for every single card. This step, it moves that amorphous anxiety of debt into a measurable, attackable problem.
Exactly. Ignoring debt is like ignoring a ticking clock. So once you have that full inventory, the system offers a choice between two pretty powerful attack plans. First, there's the debt avalanche method. Now, this one is mathematically superior. You prioritize paying off the debt with the absolute highest interest rate first, and that saves you the most money in the long term.
And the second plan, the debt snowball, which focuses on paying off the smallest balance first, no matter what the interest rate is.
Implementation. The effectiveness is just so enhanced by automation, what the system calls the lazy genius way to pay off debt.
Which is step 3. You're ensuring all your minimum payments are automated so you never ever incur a late fee. And then, crucially, you immediately redirect any extra cash, the attack money, to your priority debt right after you get paid. You never even see it sitting in your bank account.
Exactly. Automation ensures that money, which is so vulnerable to impulse spending, gets redirected automatically. It eliminates the variable of human discipline almost entirely.
That all works? Sure, assuming there is extra cash to redirect. And this is where the macroeconomic context just cannot be ignored. The entire business model of the banks is rooted in this high interest rate environment. We know the system is engineered to encourage minimum payments. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the problem can be solved solely through automation when the system itself is literally designed to trap consumers into decades of payments.
Designed or not, the commitment of the individual is paramount.
But just think about the math. If you have, say, $5,000 in debt on a card with a 27% APR, just making the minimum payment, well, that often means you could be paying that debt off for almost 25 years. You'd end up paying more than 3 times the original amount you borrowed. That's a structural incentive that favors the creditor, not a problem that's easily solved by automated transfers of cash that a struggling family might not even have.
But that calculation only applies if the borrower chooses to remain passive. And that brings us directly to our first key disagreement, this conflict between maximizing mathematical efficiency and prioritizing psychological endurance. When rates are at record highs, 20% and climbing, how can the system justify even promoting the debt snowball method over the mathematically superior debt avalanche? Choosing quick motivation seems, I don't know, financially reckless in this environment.
That is the ultimate tension, isn't it? It forces us to choose between an algorithm and, well, human nature. I acknowledge that financially, especially with today's high APRs, choosing the Avalanche method saves the most money. I get it. However, paying off debt is inherently boring. It's depressing, and it is a protracted battle.
Which is exactly why we need efficiency. Thousands of dollars saved is thousands of dollars you can put into an emergency fund.
But momentum is what separates the people who actually complete the system from those who just, learn to live with it forever. The system has to account for human fallibility. Debt fatigue is a real thing. If someone is battling $50,000 across 6 cards and they attack the largest balance first, the Avalanche way, they might pay for 18 months without seeing a single card go to zero. That is profoundly discouraging. The quick wins from the snowball method, paying off that small $500 balance first, it provides immediate psychological relief, that hit of dopamine, and the sustained engagement you need to keep them committed for the next 5 years.
Okay, I agree that sustained engagement is far more valuable than marginal interest savings if the individual just quits the plan altogether. It highlights that debt is, at its core, a behavioral problem that needs to be solved with behavioral systems. But let's shift focus to increasing income. Step 5, what some people call the cheat code. My claim is that freeing up cash doesn't require living like a hermit. The most powerful, time-cutting way to accelerate debt freedom is step 5, finding creative ways to earn substantially more, $200, maybe $1,000 or more per month through side gigs, freelancing, or negotiating a raise. This can take years off the payment timeline.
That's a compelling argument, I'll give you that, because it directly attacks the amount of the debt, which, as the New York Fed noted, is often more significant than the rate itself. But we have to scrutinize who this cheat code is actually available to.
It's available to anyone willing to put in the labor. That could mean turning a hobby into a cash stream, picking up a few shifts of gig work, or simply selling stuff that's sitting in a storage unit, which often cuts another monthly fee at the same time.
And that is exactly where the systemic constraints collide with the individual system. While overall, sure, wages are rising and unemployment is low macroeconomically, the data shows that those struggling with debt, the people whose debt is linked to the difficulty of making ends meet, are the ones feeling the most pressure from inflation and housing costs. If a borrower is already working 2 minimum wage jobs just to cover rent, relying on them to somehow find the mental and physical bandwidth for an exhausting third gig, it's just not a reliable strategy. It's variable. It relies on them running themselves into the ground.
But inertia is the enemy here. The $50 or $100 you find in savings is often not enough to beat 20% interest compounding daily. Finding an extra $500 in income a month completely transforms the equation. It's really the only way to accelerate the payoff aggressively.
I still maintain that the labor required for that $500 a month side gig is disproportionately burdensome for those who are under the most strain. Compare that to the alternative structural intervention, the 5-minute call. Calling your credit card company and just asking them to lower your APR. It doesn't work every time, no. But if you get even a 5-point drop from 27 to 22%, that is guaranteed money saved. It requires 5 minutes of labor, not 50 hours a month of a side gig. The most reliable fix is attacking the cost of borrowing, not relying on strained households to find marginal extra income.
Both should be done, of course, but the system has to account for the reality of human behavior, which is so prone to self-sabotage. You highlighted the structural traps, so let's look at point 3. How do these behavioral systems protect against those sophisticated, almost predatory mechanisms? Credit card companies lure consumers with these 0% APR balance transfers, only to hit them with worse, retroactive interest if they miss a single payment or fail to pay the whole thing off in time.
They're deliberate traps. They're designed to exploit optimism and, inevitable human error. The
The financial landscape is a minefield for the consumer who's just trying to escape the chaos. That 0% interest is so often a Trojan horse.
And the system works precisely by anticipating and eliminating that self-sabotage. That's step 7. Actively avoid debt traps. The brutal truth is that if you're paying off debt, but you're still swiping your card for impulse buys, you are actively making the hole deeper. The solution is mandatory and severe. The red alert rule, which is step 8.
And what does the red alert rule mandate?
If you are carrying a balance, meaning you are paying interest, you must stop using credit cards entirely. You cut them up or you literally put them on ice in your freezer. This means switching to cash only for all discretionary spending, often using the envelope system.
We should probably clarify what that means, because not everyone will be familiar with it.
Absolutely. The envelope system is a cash-based budgeting method. You allocate physical cash for specific spending categories, groceries, entertainment, gas, and when the cash in that physical envelope is gone, spending stops, period. This method forces discipline and creates a physical friction that digital spending just completely eliminates. It protects the user from those high-interest impulse buys and the balance transfer gimmicks. The system recognizes these traps exist, and it requires the user to proactively change their entire relationship with money.
I agree that putting the cards away is non-negotiable for anyone carrying a balance. But the reason people rely on the cards in the first place is the lack of a financial cushion to absorb unexpected shocks. So we're back to the systemic problem of affordability. A high-interest environment means you just can't save money fast enough to build that cushion before the next crisis hits.
And that is why the final piece of the behavioral system is the most critical.
Step 8 is also about building the emergency fund. Gaining control over financial chaos is fundamentally about establishing new habits and systems that anticipate shocks. You must build that initial $1,000 buffer, which acts as a behavioral firewall against high-interest credit cards for that inevitable expense. The flat tire, the urgent medical bill, the sudden rise in heating costs.
And that fund, it has to be built quickly, placed in a separate high-yield savings account, automatically transferred right after payday.
Yes, automatically transferred. Systems create the buffer needed to withstand the economic shocks that you rightly point to. The individual debt holder can't control inflation or Fed interest rates, but they can control their reaction to unexpected expenses by having that fund in place. The system offers the tools to neutralize the volatility of the macro environment on a micro scale.
I acknowledge the absolute necessity of that emergency fund. Without it, any debt payoff plan is just highly vulnerable. However, listeners must be acutely aware that they are navigating a financial terrain where structural affordability issues pose the greatest threat to success. You're fighting forces that profit massively off inertia, forces designed to keep you paying minimums for decades. The commitment required to implement the Avalanche or Snowball method while constantly having to find more income and fight off these debt traps it's substantial. Precisely because of the $1.17 trillion financial battlefield we are on.
Radical responsibility. You have to commit to finding the money, whether it's through ruthlessly cutting every unnecessary subscription or finding a sustainable side gig and then automating that attack plan. The system provides the map and the guardrails to achieve debt freedom even when the economic headwinds are brutal.
Ultimately, while the individual system offers the necessary map for debt escape, the success rate is often dictated by the economic turbulence the household is experiencing. Rigorous challenge, commitment, and systems are essential, but the structural headwinds, the 20+% rates, and the pressure on core affordability are undeniable limits on individual success.
Indeed. I think both perspectives really illuminate the complexity of solving a crisis that is, at the same time, both individual and systemic. Achieving financial freedom requires intense personal discipline, yes, but also a clear-eyed awareness of the financial battlefield you are navigating.